everybody, this is the Vikren. So hype, that can be a dangerous word sometimes. When everything works exactly as it's supposed to do, that you wait for a movie for a long time, that you know, counting down the days until it premieres, and then you go and see it, and then you walk out to the theater and you are so excited because it actually was every inch as good as you thought it was going to be, and you just feel that warm fuzzy feeling inside of yourself that you so rarely experience. The best example of when hype actually met expectation for me is probably Mad Max Fury Road. I waited for that movie for almost 2 decades before it finally came, and it remains today one of my all-time favorite movies. But that is not what we're going to talk about today. No, no, no. We're going to talk about the absolute opposite of that. In the mid-90s, there was one thing that was not a big priority of Hollywood, and that was called adventure movies. We were longing for a new Indiana Jones movie. We were just hoping that it, eventually would come. We eventually would get it, and then we wished that it hadn't actually come out, but that is a story for another time. But a adventure movie, we were waiting for something like that. And when the trailers were starting to come out about this movie, it had monster gorillas and laser rifles and temples and stuff, and it had the amazing tagline, where mankind is the endangered species. And I couldn't wait for this movie to come out. I didn't wait 2 decades for it to premiere. But anyway, I sat down in the theaters and I saw it, and I walked in with all the hype and I came out with all the hate. I hate this movie. I hate this movie for a number of reasons. And maybe if they hadn't lied to me when it came to the marketing of this movie, maybe if I just would have had a slightly lower hype on it, I would just say that it is an underwhelming, pretty bland, boring and uninteresting adventure movie. But this is fucking personal. This is regrettably my review of Congo. So Dr. Ross, played by Laura Linney, is seeing that something has happened to her husband in Africa. He's doing some kind of research thing. It is linked to the satellite business that they're in. I don't know how this satellite is, rendering them money, but somehow satellites equals profit. And John Doe Baker, played by her boss, who mostly spent this movie screaming, tells her to, get down there and find out what's happened and stuff like that. She wants to find out what happened to her husband, played by Bruce Campbell, who unfortunately gets killed in the beginning of this movie and will not be able to salvage this thing. But that is the least of our problems. Now we have another doctor, Dr. Elliot, who played by Dylan Walsh. He is studying this gorilla called Amy. Is, by the way, a guy in a suit. Don't tell anybody or he will be the laughingstock of the entire faculty. He has made her learn sign language, and she can also speak human words, because he has attached her to this computer thingy. And boy, is Amy the most annoying thing you've ever seen. Tickle Amy. Amy, good girl. Amy, good gorilla. Amy, pretty. Oh God. This was the officially first red flag this movie has, and it was the harbinger of doom that was coming. The thing is that Amy has been drawing these weird things. It's the same thing over and over and over. It's an eye surrounded by trees. It looks like a jungle, and Elliot is under the impression that this has something to do with some kind of a legend of Africa, but mostly it is that Amy wants to get back to the jungle and be a free gorilla again. Hooray, we're going to get rid of Amy. Unfortunately, it is a very, very expensive thing to repatriate a guerrilla, but along comes a mysterious Hungarian, or was it Romanian? I can never remember what he was. Philanthropist, played by Tim Curry, and his not very believable East European accent. And he says that he's going to pay for this expedition as long as he gets to come along. And he has absolutely no ulterior motives behind this. No, no, no. Along for the ride comes Laura, who sort of piggybacks on this little expedition, and together with a likable douchebag played by Joe Pantolini, and Ernie Hudson, who somehow is able to transfer all his bad lines into something that almost kind of sound cool. So now we're going down to Africa, and let the adventures begin! I said we should let the adventures begin now. Why is nothing happening in this movie? So the second red flag that was raised, and this was a pretty big one, is that this movie drags and, you know, slowly turn, and step by step they are coming slowly towards you and nothing happens. Oh God, this is so boring. And Dr. Ross is an incredibly bland and uninteresting character, and the only thing that is more irritating than her is, of course, Dr. Elliot. I don't know, Walsh is terrible in this movie. He is so annoying. He's almost Biodome levels of annoying. But I said to myself, don't worry, don't worry. Sure, there's not a lot of things that has happened at this point, but remember, your reward is coming. Monster gorillas, laser rifles, mysterious temples. It's coming, baby! Your reward awaits you! So I, hope that something was going to, happen. But they did, had the encounters with the hippopotamuses in the river, and they did have the incident with the plane that got shot down, and also Delroy Lindo shows up for some reason as some kind of an African warlord who had a weird conversation with him about cakes. What was that sequence about, by the way? That was weird, but I would have liked to see more of him. So we have uninteresting characters and not a lot of things that's happening, and the movie drags, and as I said, nothing's really happening. This is an adventure movie, really, without the adventure. But finally, we came to what we all came to see. Laser rifles, monster gorillas, mysterious temples. And after about 2 minutes of it, it was all over, and we almost never got to see them use the laser rifle. They used the laser rifle for about 2 seconds, and then the movie was over. Oh, I think that was the thing that broke me. The movie is underwhelming, it's boring, it is sagging, and the characters are interesting, and when you find out that, well, this Tim Curry guy actually have some alternative motives. The thing is that I actually cared more about him than I cared about the other guys. But I was, sold on the idea that man was the endangered species. These things were dangerous and ferocious. This, the sky was the limit of what you could have done with this concept. And they did shit with it. These bad gorillas, as Amy points it out, makes the stormtrooper looks like the fucking SAS or something like that. They were so unthreatening, and they were so uncool that, my God, it was boring. And the worst thing is that, do you know why they, only used the laser rifle for about 2 seconds? Because that it was the amount of time it took for them to kill all of them. They posed almost no threat to anybody. Sure, they killed somebody, but that was because they ganged up like 8-1 or something like that. I think 8 ducks could have killed, one guy if they were just, ferocious enough. I hope those birds don't kill me, by the way. So, and then, as I said, we had a horrendously awful ending. The ending kind of reminded me actually of the ending of Titanic. But this was somehow almost even worse, because this one was the double whammy of first some more screaming with John Doe Baker, which then led to one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, then leading to another character making another all-time worst decision I've ever seen. Jesus Christ, this movie! It made me actively angry. I was angry for 3 or 4 weeks after. Still, to this day, sometimes, you know, every 2 or 3 months or something like that, I am reminded, just walking casually down the street, I'm thinking, that Congo movie, fucking hated it. And that was because I had such an enormous expectations. If you just going into this thing knowing that you're going to see an underwhelming, slow-moving, uninteresting adventure movie without the adventure, you're probably going to think that this was underwhelming, but it was mostly harmless. But to me, this is personal. I cannot believe that Frank Marshall, who is responsible for some of my absolute favorite movies of all time, he has done so many fantastic movies, and he has done this! He has done this and thought that this will be good. It's not good, it's awful. I felt betrayed by this movie. It is one of these movies that I have tried to rewatch it, but I can't. Just seeing, you know, the beginning of the movie and seeing, you know, Bruce Campbell, you know, sitting there and he having his web camera thing and, you know, stuff like that. And knowing what's going to happen, it made me angry. I felt that my, you know, heart was starting to pound. I felt that my blood pressure was rising. I felt that I'm going to be physically ill if I watch this movie. Technically, this movie is not nearly as bad as many other movies that is, you know, on the same level as this is. But I think that it was because of that they have, you know, use so much money and they have, you know, some name value into this, and they were still unable to do anything else than a pretty lame movie. And I don't know, it broke me. There is only one movie that made me more angry than this, and that was the movie Contact that came 2 years later. Another movie that I've never actually been able to rewatch because I would just sit there and, you know, fuming and boiling with rage. It is a movie I still haven't quite gotten over yet. One day I am probably going to have to do a review of that movie, and I'm going to explain more of why I hate that movie so much, even though South Park has already beaten me to the punch of that thing. But anyway, Congo is a really, really, really bad movie, but because I believe this was going to be one of the best movies of the year, it somehow got so bad and it made me so angry that I hate this movie. This is personal. If you would compare this to a movie like The Avengers, it was also a movie I thought was going to be one of the greatest movies of all time. But when it came out, it was just so unintentionally hilarious and so unintentionally funny that it was so bad it was almost good, but still not good. But it has some kind of a trash value to itself. This is just trash. I hate this movie. The characters are annoying, the pace is horrendously awful, nothing happens, and the things that was going to be the cool things ended up being just a big wet fart. I hate this movie, and I'm going to give myself this, that starting today, I'm going to try to forget that this movie has ever existed. It's not worth it still getting mad about it 3 decades after it has come out. You gotta let it go at some point. I think this is my cleansing of this thing. Jesus Christ, this movie. So the production isn't bad, and there is a joke or two that almost kind of lands, and I will also admit that Ernie Hudson is cool, Joe Pantoliano is kind of cool, and Tim Curry at least looks like he's enjoying himself, and at least he has a fun and entertaining character that I was more behind than any of these other Nimrods. But the problem is that our two main characters are so horrendously boring, awful and annoying that there is no way of salvaging this movie. This movie gets 7 points. When this movie originally came out, I think I gave this movie 2 or 3 points. The thing is that this movie hasn't got any better. But the fact is that I've seen so many movies since then that has been so awful that it has gone up by not doing anything. If you can follow my logic regarding that. 7 points for at least a couple of decent performances and a decent production. But the pace and the lack of adventure and the lack of action and the anticipation that was squandered in the end. I hate this movie. I cannot stress how much I hate this movie. Frank Marshall, I hate your movie. Is there anybody out there who actually likes Congo? Do you think I was unfair to it? Comment below, and I'll see you next time from Well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.